Off top, the Edward R. Murrow Award is named after Edward R. Murrow. He was a war correspondent in World War II. The Peabody Award is named after George Peabody. He was an activist for women's suffrage, free trade, and black education in the American South. Pablo's here. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show.
You were so close to a compliment.
What?
You got like 90% of the way to a compliment, and then you were like, "I'm just gonna leave this here."
I'm in New York with my wife. I decided to roll over to Pablo's studio and use that to do my show.
I'm in DC. Charlie, what are you talking about?
Charlie is in DC. Oh, I got it. You're just my work wife, bro.
True.
Can we be work bros? Like,
yeah, we're work bros.
I mean,
I don't think that states accurate.
We are committed. We're in a committed relationship. It's monogamous, and every now and then we bring a little fun into the conversation, which is why Pablo is here. Why did you say it was an insult? It's not an insult. I was pointing. I was naming.
You almost connected me to those names.
I didn't almost connect them. I connected them. I said who they are, the people who the awards are named after, and then I said Pablo's here. That was my off top. I wanted to make sure that people understood that Pablo, who was a recipient of one of those awards and nominated for another award.
Thank you. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Right.
I was just wondering if I was gonna have to be the guy to say the reason why I am associated with an icon in, apparently this is me finding out something, women's suffrage, which I definitely knew about.
You certainly make Jordan Hudson tough suffer.
That's why Charlie's here.
I love that in spite of every reason to not love that show.
I mean, we're gonna get to some conversation about the NBA conference finals, and they got some other fun stuff at the end. But I do think it's appropriate for us to start by mocking you a little bit.
I mean,
you're a big fancy journalist,
well,
or so you call yourself that. And right now, your claim to journalism fame at this current moment is snooping around an old dude and his very young girlfriend. Like that's you are out here.
You are reading the Instagram story that Jordan Hudson posted about me and then deleted within an hour, in which he calls me a reporter, but with quotes around it. And again, hard to disagree on some level. I try to be self-aware about what's happening.
I can't wait till you win the Edward R. Murrow Award and you walk up there and take the award that is named after a World War II correspondent, and you say, "Man, I drove all the way to Massachusetts to take a picture in front of a house."
It's a video. It's a moving picture.
A moving picture.
Edward R. Murrow would be horrified to learn what has happened in the advent of video-based technology.
Oh, the piecing together the Pentagon Papers is the same thing as when you were just thumbing through photos of Foxborough Stadium.
Oh, there's so much thumbing.
Reliance? I don't know what the stadium is
It's
called.
Gillette.
Gillette. There we go.
Yeah.
Did you, Pablo? Did you ever get in touch with the geolocator guy?
Rainbolt?
Yeah.
Me and Rainbolt are buds.
Yeah?
Me and Rainbolt are buds. I'm also buds with his roster of 8 international geoguessers that are waiting to be deployed.
Are you trying to intimidate me and Charlie now?
I'm just saying, if you guys just happen to be pictured anywhere in the world, I will find you.
Don't worry
about it. We'll find you.
Domonique has my location. I share my location with him 24 hours a day.
Domonique has an air tag on Charlie.
I wish it was a joke. It's like 3 years ago. We were somewhere trying to find each other, so I sent him, you can share your location for like an hour or 24-hour period. I did that to him. He shared his with me indefinitely. It has yet to turn it off. So whenever I open up my phone trying to find out where my 14-year-old daughter is, I'm like, oh, I don't know where she is, but I know where Charlie's is, right? I'm like, I don't want your location all the time, Charlie. I don't give a
I just love the idea.
You can turn it off. You can remove it.
Opening his phone only to see that the AirTag that Charlie is activating on his phone is just on top of his. He's just behind you.
Yeah. I just trying to figure out where my 3 small children are. And I can't find them, but I know where Charlie is at an ice cream shop in D.C.
The triangulation of the data indicates that Charlie loves him some scoops.
Don't,
Charlie sent
Pablo,
me-
I
he
think
sent
you
me-
turned off your mic. This is. I
God
thought
damn,
you're in
there it
your
is.
studio.
Hello.
He's not in his chair.
Did you guys hear my joke?
I think it won't be fun if you tell it again. You want to tell it again?
No, and wait,
I didn't hear it.
I'm getting from the behind the glass. Ken is giving me the either don't say the joke or we didn't hear the joke. It's hard to tell.
Don't say the joke. I do have a.
It was a joke about scoops.
I send Charlie
scoops.
like up to date videos of my daughter running track, and Charlie told me that that he was home alone, and Carrie went on a trip, and so he was home alone, and you know what he sent me a picture of? 5 new flavors of ice cream in his freezer. He was so excited.
Charlie making his inevitable return to his O-line St. Albans form. I've been waiting for this.
Look,
He'll never go back.
I'm literally built different than I was a week ago because of that photo, Dominique.
So what was the favorite flavor? Do
Yeah,
you
well,
remember?
hold on. Where is this like fancy ice cream?
Yeah,
what are you
it's-
curating?
It's fancy ice cream. Pablo, you'd love this place. You'd become friends with like the ice cream sommelier and then try and get us a better table there. So it's this place called Happy Ice Cream in DC. The guy, it used to be a restaurant, Comey, that had a Michelin star. And then during the pandemic, they became a pizza place and ice cream parlor, and it's like Michelin star ice cream. So I had a
Ooh.
flavor that you would love, which is olive oil and cocoa cookie crumble.
Oh, I love an
malt-
oil. I love an oil on my ice cream.
Yeah, it's elite. It's like if they just zhuzhed up cookies and cream in such a way. Chocolate oatmeal cookie. There was a Rocky Road, which was great, and then a
Rocky
malted
Road
vanilla.
and peanut
Malted.
praline.
Yeah,
Malted vanilla. Yeah.
malted vanilla.
I
Like,
lo-
who knew you could make vanilla slightly less boring in such a way?
Ooh, he's got a Jenny's double dough in there too.
That was just lingering.
God.
That one
Yeah,
didn't.
that was
that
the
didn't.
old one.
Yeah.
That was a heat check.
Yeah.
That was an Anthony Edwards heat check. Did I spill balsamic vinegar on my laptop with you guys?
Yes,
Or
on the
was that-
strawberry ice
okay.
cream. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget. The pandemic was a real blur. At one point, I was eating strawberry ice cream
Oh yeah.
on Debatable with you guys, and I made the point of how much I love an oil, in this case, a vinegar, and it destroyed my computer. So,
It's,
I had a new computer.
I still have my computer that I spilled water on our 3rd episode of the Domonique Foxworth Show ever, and was super late because of it, and it doesn't work well. Should we talk about basketball?
Resilient. Yeah, let's talk about some basketball.
I suppose.
Okay, guys, I want to do a little, like, speaking of Debatable, something that we sort of do with Debatable, some zoom in, zoom out, big picture, small picture things on the Game 4 we saw between the Timberwolves and the Thunder, because I think you could make the bigger story anything you wanted out of this. The way
Yeah.
that the Thunder defended Anthony Edwards, the way that Anthony Edwards responded or didn't respond to that sort of defensive focus in certain ways, and what it says about the state of the Western Conference, the way that the Thunder are rolling through it, and what it says about the future of this Wolves team, which a week ago we were looking at Anthony Edwards like, holy this could happen right now. He is that good right now. And then we saw a game where he took 2 shots in the first half. He afterwards he said he didn't struggle because, you know, he took what the defense gave him and he made the right play. And in his eyes, that's growth for him, someone who had been a ball stopper in the past. There's questions about their second offensive player, et cetera, et cetera. When you look at that and zoom out, what's most interesting to you from that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Anthony Edwards, his interpretation of the game was interesting to me. And I think after watching the game, I've come around to kind of agreeing with him. And they have back-to-back games of 60-plus points from their bench, which is something that you would think is not, like, replicable. And it made me feel like this was, like, a missed opportunity. But it wasn't as if the issue with this team was their offense, I guess. Like, that's what I came away thinking is they're going to need another player. And also, like, let's not make too much of this. Because my reaction was, like, Anthony Edwards did a similar thing last year where he just kind of, like, turtled up in the conference finals against, it was against Jokic, right? Jokic and the Nuggets, where he had that amazing series before, and then we thought, not against Jokic, I'm sorry. It was against
Dallas.
Doncic.
It's against Dallas.
Dallas. He had an amazing series against Jokic and the Nuggets. Then the next series, we were like, who's this guy who's only shooting jump shots and not attacking the basket? And then having a similar thing happen in this series, I was like, all right, well, maybe we need to question him. But I think it felt like that wasn't the reason why they lost, and they were getting good shots as a result of him just being on the floor. So I feel like I may not have answered your question clearly, but I don't think that's as big a deal.
So make your own adventure, whatever you think is interesting.
Well, I
do think the next step for the Wolves is interesting to me. How they're going to add to this team, because the clock, as we know in modern NBA, the clock is fast, man. That window.
You're speeding it up to the point where this series is done, is what I'm hearing.
No, I mean, they should be headed into a game tonight. They're down 3-1. I don't got them coming back down 3-1. I'm going to watch tonight's game and hope that the Wolves can make this into a series.
So I wanted to initially say Domonique is footballing this because the whole thing is, look, when there's a receiver that isn't, in the game, you really credit the defense.
I love.
Right, like
that
Anthony
Pablo's
Edwards.
teaching me about football. Guys.
Anthony Edwards. Right. There's this position in the NFL called wide receiver.
Okay.
And sometimes a defensive back, which is the I would say ego dysmorphic person who is getting a lot of credit for what they do to the wide receiver. They have an impact as well. When it comes to what the Thunder did, Charlie. So I'm looking at this chart, and Game 4 versus OKC, front court touches, average defender distance, percentage double teamed. And there's just a big arrow that says Anthony Edwards was double teamed on 46.7% of his front court touches in Game 4. All that really means is there was a plan.
Yeah.
They face guarded him down the floor. Yep.
If he's down there, guess what? You're seeing multiple defenders. And so to zoom all the way out, right? And so again, here's another stat which I found very interesting. Teams entered this game 0 for 190 all time in the postseason while having fewer rebounds, fewer assists, fewer free throw attempts, a lower field goal percentage, lower three-point percentage, lower free throw percentage than their opponent. The Thunder made that stat 1 in 190. So the idea that the Wolves outplayed them in every conceivable way, but we're going to zoom in on Anthony Edwards, does feel like if we're going to credit anything, it's the defensive plan that the Thunder had to make that marginal difference specifically at that part of the court.
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder's defense, I think, has been the kind of story of the playoffs so far. And, Charlie, I think in your intro you mentioned that they're rolling through the West. I mean, they went to 7 with Denver, so it hasn't been a complete roll to the West, but they have looked kind of a cut above these teams when everyone is playing the way that we expect them to play. There were some, particularly in this game, this most recent game, seeing SGA and Jalen Williams score with the regularity that we saw in the regular season seemed slightly different and kind of scary. Like, this is why this team is so good. But all that being said, they still were in a tight game, which I guess speaks to all the stats that Pablo just rolled out, which did not include offensive rebounds or turnovers.
Correct.
would be my guess, because I couldn't keep up. He was talking.
I'm gonna try and thread the coward's needle here as we take it back to debatable over and over again.
Love the coward's needle getting threaded.
Because I don't want this to be a major indictment of Anthony Edwards. When I was watching the game, I did find it strange the way that he played. He was being face guarded by a million people, and I don't know if people were watching the Insight Cast, the alternative broadcast on ESPN. Tim Legler and Kirk Goldsberry did. Yes.
Charlie loves the advanced
Pablo,
telecast.
I want nothing more than to hop on with you and start clowning Charlie for loving the Insight Cast. Well, he got me hooked too.
Oh no!
You've
radicalized Dominique.
I love it. I mean,
so they brought up the
shout
best.
Out to Kirk. Shout out to Legs. They are good.
So they brought up the best strategic point that I don't think had been brought up on the regular broadcast, which was that Chris Finch and Minnesota had been used to using wing to wing or guard to guard screens with Anthony Edwards, and the Thunder realized after Game 3. Oh, we can actually just switch those. If you're switching from Dort to Wallace or Dort to Jalen Williams, you're getting no advantage. And it certainly confused the Wolves to the point that it took him out of the game offensively. But the reason I don't want this to be an indictment is you look at that Wolves team, and I guess their second best offensive player at this point is Julius Randle. We aren't crushing him because we understood that this 5-point game was going to happen at some point. We were waiting for midnight to come for Julius Randle this entire postseason. But they're in a really unique situation where Ant has taken this leap. He's a top 10 guy, but so many people around the NBA and the NBA media have been in a rush to crown him as the face of the league and the guy who's ready to take the mantle. And he's beaten Jokic, he's beaten Curry, he's beaten LeBron, he's beaten Doncic in playoff series, and stripping the context around those really diminished teams that led to this. And maybe the stuff about him running the league is very premature. And the moment that still made me think it was a weird game, even if I'm not crushing him, is we got to the end of that game and it was a 1-possession game several times in the last 3 minutes. And that's the time when players can be really defense agnostic, and you do want him to sort of force the issue and take the best shot. And I know Nickeil Alexander-Walker was hitting everything. I know DiVincenzo was hitting everything. I believe their bench went 9 of 13 for 3 or something like that, or 13 for 20 from 3, something crazy. But you just expect when he's giving up the ball to keep moving. And you see that with, and this is the standard I'm going to hold him to. You see that with Jokic, you see that with Curry, you see that with LeBron, ways to impact the game off the ball and reintegrate themselves in the offense. And that's the next step. And that's if we were holding him to that standard, that's the next step.
Yeah, I mean, and those big shots are going to be, it reminds me a little bit of the Nesmith game where Nesmith goes off, but you know who's taking the last shot? Like Haliburton's taking the last shot. He's going to find a way. And bringing up Haliburton in this conversation is interesting, too, because it feels like that's something that we are amazed by the existence of Tyrese Haliburton in the NBA now, where he's kind of a distributing point guard, which is a bit obsolete in the NBA at this point. You know what the Wolves could really use? Like someone next to Anthony Edwards who can handle the ball and distribute and create plays for him. And he's kind of the de facto point guard because, like, come on, Mike Conley is.
Well, but that's why they got Mike Conley is for the. I mean, by the way,
Mike Conley can't. I mean, you got a time machine for my man Mike.
I think that we are empirically seeing that Mike Conley probably needs a time machine. I think that's probably right. There is something that I don't think you guys are getting though on the advanced broadcast, because over on the conventional broadcast world, what I hear is Jeff Van Gundy always saying it's a make or miss league.
Well,
and by the way, what Charlie was just saying, the great man theory of end game strategy, that's what this whole thing is. When it's the end of the game and your whole job is to overcome the defense, and you cite Tyrese Haliburton, who had that, again, you backed up behind the arc, didn't actually get behind the arc, threw up a 3 that took as insane a bounce as you'll ever see, and or maybe double dribbled. The fact that he made it is why, again, we are going to reverse engineer everything around it. But make or miss league.
Sorry, Charlie, I know you have lots of smart, important things to say, but we didn't have a show after the Tyrese Haliburton shot. And that was an incredible moment.
One of the greatest games I've ever seen.
And I loved it. It was so much fun, the choke and all that stuff. But that play was like the opposite of what you would argue that you would want someone to do in that moment. Like it's what we want our stars to do. So like he goes into the lane, fumbles it around. Like it looked so smooth when it happened.
It was superhero
But yeah,
ball.
I think that's the perfect description of it. It was hero ball. And it works. And I guess that's what the stars in the NBA are. We expect that from the stars.
But you know
it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing about the conversation is like we as like smart sports fans, I think we like to be like, all right, we want to understand this and make the smart play all throughout the game. But when it comes down to the come down, all we want is you to tell everybody to get out your damn way and make a play because that's what we grew up on and that's what we love.
And to that point, by the way, the game itself is, from an officiating perspective, called differently at the end of games. Everybody recognizes this.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody acknowledges this. It is not merely an imposition of some concept. It is the reality of the NBA in specific. And also, what was so funny about the Haliburton thing, Charlie, was that it was superhero ball, but it was also a bit of a doink. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
you doinked in a field goal. It was just like, it's just funny to have those big cojones and then clearly luck into the thing being made, which made it so that you got to be the hero.
I was so upset by that. Domonique was texting me being like, I'm sorry. I have irrationally built up I love the way that Haliburton theoretically plays as a distributing point guard who's so unselfish. I have built up so much sports hate for this Pacers team. I want them to lose so badly.
Where are they polling? So I want to.
They aren't polling well.
So
by the way,
just
we're
as
hearing
a
some
matter
great
of-
Knicks cope in real time. Clearly lucky from former Knicks fan, now current Knicks fan, Pablo Torre.
Look, as I say, my Knicks fandom is like my Catholicism. I carry it with me, and I only sample certain parts of the religion. It's traumatic, in other words.
I thought you were going to land that a lot better. Like, you set it up. It
Look,
felt
do you
like...
want me
I
to
think you were gonna
have
say you
a
have Knicks
molestation
guilt.
joke? Is that what you're looking for? That's where I was trying to
No, I'm
avoid
just
going.
saying that you set it up like it's something that you go to all
Yeah,
the time.
like a
it's like,
saying.
I just want to say, my nigga says it's like my Catholicism. And then I thought you was gonna get us with a nice punch, and you just stumbled. You dribbled it off your knee, and you stepped back, and you hit, and you shot a shot.
I think it
and then
doinked in.
bounced.
I think it doinked in. I think it doinked in at the end. I think I saved it at the
doinked
end. Look, Thunder. To get back to the Thunder and the Pacers. Now combining these things, Thunder Pacers obviously NBA television nightmare. Unbelievably funny.
I haven't thought about that.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean it's just.
Is it a thought you've practiced that you have in a way that you can roll out that is pithy and efficient?
No, it's just I've been thinking a lot about as I prepare for some of these shows, I feel like pulled to have a conversation about not the rating specifically, but the level of entertainment value and how we're reacting to it. And like how, like, I think we've done this a couple times. We kind of banded on our show, like criticizing the NBA.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how it feels like,
I don't
as
know
a
if you know
result of
this,
us
Pablo. Domonique is very good friends with Adam.
Here we go.
Adam.
This shit. No, don't. You're gonna make Pablo mad because you know Pablo wants to be the closest to everybody with any level of fame and power.
Look, I like sources close to the situation.
Pablo's
Anyway,
very
the
upset he
point
didn't
is,
get
I
to
was-
interview Mark
I just-
Tatum at his alma mater last year.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I did that.
Look, if you want to have Mark Tatum off, I just saw him at All Star because he's Asian.
He's black.
Well,
I mean,
agree to agree.
okay. I mean, America.
Okay, sorry, I cut off your actual point, Domonique, about the
I'm
about
sorry,
the
it
show.
wasn't that interesting. It was just the point that like I feel that it felt like Pablo was headed down that path, but like I feel that drive to have a conversation about like ratings
Oh,
because
look,
I feel myself thinking that too, but like I don't give how many people tune in. Like I recognize that, and I'm not criticizing you, Pablo, but like it's
No.
everywhere. You
But
hear
you
it
know,
all the time where people are like, you know, Adam Silver doesn't want these finals. So what? It's gonna be fun as hell watching the Haliburton get strapped up.
Okay,
by that
so
defense.
agree, right? Like I am a big proponent as a content creator that the
creator?
best stuff
Can't be a
need
creator?
not be measured by popularity. It's just it's a depressing fact of internet life, let alone human instinct to say popularity equals best. And we just saw the Pacers be one of the best TV squads. What?
So you're saying that you believe that things should not be measured by popularity. The same person who just did a second episode.
That's art. I don't think you see the
a
Bill
second-
Belichick story the way
a
that I
second-
see it as art.
a second Belichick episode.
and
You
like
try-
and
you trying to
subscribe-
tell me
like and
that
subscribe-
episode 2
like and
was not a
subscribe.
ratings grab.
Like and subscribe. There might be a third one. The thing I am saying is that you're right. Tyrese Haliburton, all-time great character. Because he is annoying, because he is superhero adjacent, all that stuff. Where this becomes real, though, Charlie, is when, I don't know, and I get yelled at by NBA PR all of the time, so I want to say hello, Tim Frank, if you're listening to this.
God.
They put Scott Foster on that game, Charlie. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that there is always the meta conversation around
Scott
what
Foster
does
has a
the NBA
reputation
want.
for those who don't know.
His reputation, just Google him.
He's a referee who
Just Google him.
is known, or I guess believed to influence games in a way that the NBA would be.
I'm just saying
happier with. I guess
he
that's what
was
you're implying.
assigned to Game 3. The Knicks needed it, and the Knicks got it. And I don't think it's because of Scott Foster. I'm just saying it's funny when a guy is just always around when stuff like that happens. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
That's just gonna hum for me. I don't want to insult Dominique's good friend Adam. Let's. Can we talk about the Thunder part of this for a second? Because there is something like this is starting to percolate around NBA conversation. Just that it seems that the Thunder will now be significant favorites to win the NBA championship, up 3-1 in their series against the Wolves. Whoever comes out of the East, I'm imagining the Thunder will be considerable favorites over. They won 68 games. But I'm now looking at the last 6 years of NBA champions, really, or maybe 7 since the end of that Warriors run. And you had a Raptors team that I'm not saying they won by default because Kawhi was amazing. That team was really good, but they beat a very diminished Warriors team. You had the bubble championship. You had the Bucks in 21 playing a very injured team. You had that weird Curry championship against a Boston team that wasn't ready. You had the Nuggets, which seemed like it was the beginning of something, but it crumbled very quickly. You had the Celtics last year, which now seems like the end of something that we thought could have been the beginning of something. And you have this Thunder team because of the way they play, strangling you on defense, because of the way that SGA, like I'm not saying SGA is not an amazing player. He is incredible, but he's clearly a bit of a merch, clearly a foul merchant. And like the grifting can be tough to watch at times, and it really stalls their offense. Like it was pointed out on the Insight Cast, shout out Legs, just the amount of possessions where there's no screen, there's no action. It's just him going to work and sort of drawing contact.
Yeah.
And I want to know, when you watch this, do you think that this Thunder team, do you feel that they stand out amongst this new era of NBA champions? If they were to get there, of great teams, I should say, because they aren't champions yet.
I don't see them at the moment as an all-time great team by any stretch, even though I know statistically, certainly the regular season indicates defensively that they are exactly that, which is underrated.
Best net rating ever.
Yeah. I get that. So maybe I'm now being, standard telecast guy somehow, and I'm behind on the metrics. I think more than that, though, they're emblematic of this era, and I say that as the process guy. Mm-hmm. The religion that I adopted, that I converted into, right, which is where is every available competitive edge, and how do you maximize it? And the Thunder, who did tanking so much more comprehensively in terms of the basically soup to nuts version of front office management than the Sixers. The Thunder did that. They still have all those picks, right? So that going from just how they assembled the team and built it and drafted it, which is impressive, to being ready, by the way, with assets when it came time for Kawhi Leonard to say, I want out, I need Paul George. They said, we happen to be ready for just this circumstance. That is a modern NBA thing, to just be ready to vulture a guy like SGA from the Clippers, right? The origin story of that was emblematic of this era, being like the facilitator in a transaction, right? And then being the people who are exploiting the letter of the law, as SGA himself is playing on the court in the way that James Harden, of course, we've talked about before, a merch, to use a term that I assume people beyond Charlie say. But
merchant is short for merchant.
Foul merchant, right? Like all of this feels like how to exploit the letter of the law and violate its spirit.
So to the merch point, like I get it. He does some of that too, but like comparing him to Harden, and I get that James Harden is probably a very good comp for him, like offensively, not defensively. But he has a serious mid-range game. So it's not like, I think it's a little unfair. And some of his merching in the playoffs, at least, has been frustrating. But then he uses the merch as a threat, and he actually goes to make shots. So like I feel like the difference between him and like a real villainous merchant is every time James Harden drove, it felt like it was an alley-oop to someone, or he was throwing his arms into you, and if it wasn't that, it was a step-back three. So in my defense of SGA, there is a mid-range game to it, and there's the threat of, like, I'm going to merch into you in order to create an open shot. Not to defend him, but it feels like it is more and I guess this goes back to the way that you talk about maximizing opportunity at every specific place. It actually, you suggest it as if there isn't a cost to that. And I think that there is a cost to it, and SGA has found that out, which is why he includes the other portions of the mid-range game. It's not just merching. And then it goes back to the tanking thing, is I think you and people who are 76ers fans want to claim this as OKC as an example of them doing the same thing, but they didn't. Like, they were more opportunistic in responding to the circumstances around them. It's very different from just up and deciding, you know what? Let's fucking suck.
Well, here's the okay. So
like, it's a different scenario.
So here's I think this is a bit of the brass tacks of the conversation when it comes to like what did the Thunder do and how proud are we of them. I think they benefited from way better marketing. I think the fact that they didn't
talk to you.
They didn't talk to me. Again, fair. They also did this in Oklahoma City in a tiny media market in which, to our point earlier, people just didn't care as much that this was some cultural kind of revolution.
And they also drafted well.
And
like
also, okay.
So
and
the decisions
yes,
that were made were actually the right decision.
And Sam Presti, there is no question, has been at drafting and scouting talent as good as anybody in the NBA. He's probably Kravitz. Is there somebody that you put ahead of Sam Presti? Because I don't at this point in terms of just like drafting talent.
No. I mean, there's like an elite of it where I think he's probably the best. He's had the best opportunities. Like, I mean, you look
lot of ping pong balls for him to play with. But
yeah,
I think
but
he's
also
made the most of them. To Dominique's point, it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, he's incredibly unique. The Spurs have drafted really well historically. The Heat have drafted and developed really well historically. Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens are incredible at acquiring talent that's underutilized. But I think that Presti's the best. But it's hard to say amongst those top guys.
Point being,
yeah, go ahead.
I just think that if the Thunder
definitely not Daryl.
The question I want to have around this this team right now is, you made the point that they stand out in this era, but you also tried to differentiate it from being a great team. So like, we're skipping ahead some degree. Like, isn't how great your team is based on how well you stand out in a particular era? And I know we're talking about how windows close really fast for lots of teams. If there is a team who does have the potential of having an extended window, it's this team that's pretty young and has a ridiculous amount of picks. So I think I have a hard time, because of all the basketball that I've watched up until this point. This type of team is not the type of team that we consider all-time great necessarily. It feels kind of like how the Warriors were like, no, we can't believe that the Warriors are an all-time great team because they're so different, until they beat it into us. So, and then they went and got KD, and we're like, all right, you guys are great. So I think that's how I feel about this team. Is it could definitely happen, and maybe we're going to be late to it, but there's nothing about this team that suggests that they won't be able to put themselves in a position. Like, if you had to pick any of the NBA teams right now that is most likely to
be back
to put together a good run, and this feels like a dumb, easy question. I guess you could throw Victor in this conversation too, but
the Thunder are the answer to that question.
Right. I mean, even if you go back to like when other teams won championships and we all believed like, oh, you know what, the Nuggets are going to be that team. Like, but in recent history, there are very few teams that are as well positioned as this team was.
And here, actually, you sort of went there in our own mind meld to the place that I wanted to go, which is that the whole through line of everything we've talked about today is, in fact, when is it the team and when is it the star? And this team has a star in SGA, Charlie, where when I see him, he doesn't feel like the best player on a championship team to me. Yeah. That's the difference. And you're right. Maybe that is traditional telecast sort of vibes as opposed to advanced metrics assessment.
My bad. 40, 10, and 9. Don't feel like a superstar to me.
Look, exactly. All I have is I know it when I see it. That's all I got. That's all I got. And
I described it the exact same way this morning, Pablo. Word for word.
Thank you.
You're proud of that? You're proud of it?
That's right.
I agree with Pablo, because
we got two people agreeing, and the one thing, Kravitz, that I would love to see, because Domonique sent us there, is I would love to see them get Kevin Durant.
I mean,
bring him home.
The irony is,
you said our problem is solved.
You said OKC. I think Minnesota needs Durant. That's the one where I got to. Where it's like
Minnesota. I can tell you, Minnesota is definitely going to try and do that.
Well, because Minnesota's in this crazy cap hell where, despite the fact that Anthony Edwards is 23 and McDaniels is still young, like the Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, empty cupboard of picks type of thing is really significant. But no, I mean, the Thunder of it all, I felt the same way, Pablo. Like, it's weird because I know at the end of this season, we are careening towards a discussion of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's won the MVP, the Finals MVP. The Thunder are on the precipice of being the last NBA dynasty, the final one, because of Dominique's dear friend Adam turning the NBA into the NFL, where there's a lot more parity because of the second apron, because of the way that Sam Presti stacked these young contracts and picks that he's going to be able to funnel through supporting talent in a really interesting way. But I watch it, and I know all of those things. And I still see SGA, this great player, as closer to that tier of the Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum's, Luka Doncic than I see him towards Nikola Jokic. And that will not be the discussion in 4 weeks if things go the way that I think they're going to go.
You guys are having two different conversations, though. Like, I don't disagree with you on that. Like, I think he's a great player, and he hasn't yet climbed to that particular level that you're talking about. But that's separate from what it's going to take to be dominant in this era of basketball. And I think that what we have to accept is that being dominant in this era of basketball is a team that's closer to this team than it is closer to like the big threes and the big twos and the super duper stars.
And they might be emblematic of this era in that way that I did not consider that you just said, more than any of the others.
Right.
They have depth. They have a well-constructed team. They don't need the superhero.
Just like the Celtics a few years ago.
Last year?
Yep.
What year is it?
12 months ago?
Well, last year they won it, but I mean, a few years ago was when we were all talking about how the Celtics they just kept getting to the finals there. Or I guess when they lost to the Warriors, right?
2010.
Then they won it last year. We were like, this team is set up to be a dynasty. And it's over.
Had some makes.
I think that this is, it's a great point.
We got a lot more to talk about, but we got to shut it down because Pablo is being selfish with his studio. So I appreciate you, Charlie. Have some ice cream.
Save one of those scoops for me, buddy.
I won't.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Pablo. Thank you to all the great producers and the wonderful people at Podville and the wonderful people here at Meadowlark for letting me use their studio. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.